Good morning and welcome to worship with us at Orchard Ridge United Church of Christ. As the day rises to meet the sun, so do we rise to meet God and the world around us. I'd like to just share with you, we have a couple of announcements for today. After worship today, you can join into the Java and Jesus discussion, or you can join in the virtual coffee hour that'll start at 11 o'clock this morning on Zoom, and those links were sent in the order of worship and the worship resources yesterday. And just a reminder that in the month of August, our compassion offering will go towards the Community Immigration Law Center. So as we center ourselves for worship, I'd like to share with you from Philippians, the 4th chapter, and I'm reading from the translation, The Message. Do not fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. Summing it all up, friends, I'd say you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious. The best, not the worst. The beautiful, not the ugly. Things to praise, not things to curse. So as we continue our worship this morning, I'd like to share with you, we've invited Kylie Boyd to share special music this morning. She'll be singing My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
My life flows on in endless song, above earth's lamentations. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear its music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? While though the tempest loudly roars, I hear the truth it liveth. And though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? My life flows on in endless song, above earth's lamentations. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear its music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing?
For today's worship service, I invited 5 parents, Bethany and Brock Schultz, Alyssa and Pete Haskins, and Emily Lloyd, to join in a conversation. We recorded that conversation on Zoom, and they shared in that time some of the challenges and struggles they are going through as parents during this time. And they also shared joys and the things they are learning. So at this time, we will share with you that conversation.
I'm Bethany.
I'm Brock.
Yep. And Fiona is our oldest, and she is 6.5 and will be entering first grade at Van Hise this year. And then Leo is 2, approaching 2.5. So he has been in daycare until April, and when we pulled him out for a time, and are not sure what we're gonna do in the fall for him. So.
Right. Okay. Alyssa and Pete.
I'm Alyssa.
I'm Pete.
And we have 3 kids, all boys. Kohler is going to be in 3rd grade. He's 8.5. Cameron is going to be 7. He's entering first grade. And then we have Quinn, who's our wild card right now. He's 2.5, going on 3, actually almost 3. So yeah, just a lot under one roof.
Right. Okay, great. And Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily. I have Owen, who's 8 and going into 3rd grade at Country View. We're in the Verona School District. And then Audrey is 6 and she's going into 1st grade.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Well, I don't know if you had a chance to look at some of the questions I sent. I know there's all these big challenges that you guys are trying to figure out. And so I started with maybe one of those questions, and I thought, well, maybe we should start with a positive question too, anyway, I didn't know if you wanted to plunge right into, the struggles and the challenges, or we could also just talk about a joy or something that you're learning about yourself, or a new ritual that your family has come up with through all of this. So we can do it in whatever order is on your heart right now. So somebody want to jump in?
Either way.
Okay. Well, let's just start with the challenges, because I think they're right in front of us, and that's why we kind of got the meeting going. So does someone want to start by sharing what you're trying to consider as a family? And
Well, we can jump in. Like
Yep.
Beth said, we're really just trying to figure out what we do this fall. And not just with Quinn, who's going to be 3, but with all the kids and with their education. The virtual learning didn't go great last spring. It was very stressful, and it was a lot for the kids to wrap their head around a new type of learning that was kind of piecemealed together, that was just so radically different than their day-to-day education. And at the same time, they were in, I'm sure you guys had the same thing, where our kids were in activities. So not only did they just lose all of that, all their extracurriculars and all their friendships and all that kind of stuff, but now you're sitting in front of a computer for X amount of time, having to pay attention and learn how to type, which you've never done before. And all these different apps, and they were very frustrated. It was just a very frustrating, very emotional time. And then we were still balancing work.
You're both working full time.
I've been working from home full time this whole time. It was intense at first because with coronavirus, working in healthcare, on the software side of things, there's a lot of stuff we were doing to help get organizations ready for the surge of cases that they were expecting. Then Alyssa took a month and a half off of work at first.
Just to get acclimated with the kids.
Yeah, and then she went back. She normally works part-time, 3 days a week. Yeah, 3 days, right? Yeah. And we have somebody come to the house and watch the kids on those days. So now we're trying to figure out in the fall what.
It became very clear that me working and then having them in school here just was not compatible for our family. So I just put in my resignation, and I am done effective August 20th. So not totally decided, but 90% sure that I'm just going to do my own homeschooling curriculum outside of the MMSD program. So
Okay.
a lot.
Yeah, and was it just really hard to make a decision about that, or did it just seem the writing was on the wall?
It was easy in light of like the PTSD from last spring. You know,
Right.
like I am not doing that again. So unless they come out with something, you know, they haven't released exactly what they're going to do, unless I'm like blown away with the program that they lay out for us. And if I feel like it's a good fit, then I might change my mind and supplement.
Mhm.
But just having different kids of different school ages, I just think it's going to be a lot of time tethered to a device, which we struggled with last semester.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? Let's see, Bethany and Brock, what have been the challenges and thinking where you're at now?
Um,
Where do you begin, huh?
yeah, similarly, I think it's the nice thing about, I work half time, and so I was working from home with the kids in the spring, trying to do both of the things at the same time, and then the screen time issue was very real because the only way to be able to focus on my work and do what I need to do would be to have them watch a movie or something. And so they would do that in the morning, and then we would try to do school after that, which then was more sitting in front of a screen. And so we honestly didn't do a lot of school because it just, you all know when your kids sit in front of screens too much, they're
Banana.
yeah, it's just bonkers. And
Mhm.
so that was tricky. And then it has been nice, like, because I've had the summer mostly off, to be able to just be present and kind of recharge a little bit. So I feel a little more refreshed, but then also I'm experiencing a little bit of the PTSD feeling of going back in to doing this again in a few weeks. And I'm pretty sure I will be continuing to work from home. Um, and just trying to maybe plan on how we can make it work differently. But it sounds like there's going to be some synchronous things happening, and how if I have a lesson scheduled with a student for school, and I also have to get Fiona to her reading group at the same time, like how are we going to make that work? And then um,
Hmm.
because if we could do it whenever we wanted, there's that. And so I, also thrown around the idea of, well, maybe we should explore doing some homeschool curriculum instead, because we can do that when it works for us. But also, we're worried about the equity element of pulling kids out of school and funding for schools, and like are trying to kind of spread the word that, like, if you're going to do homeschool, maybe keep your kids enrolled through the third Friday of the school year so that they can be counted for funding, and then
That's a
open
good
up for
point.
homeschool, things like that. But I don't know. I think we're gonna give the virtual school a try and see how it works, and either supplement what we need to, or I said just earlier, I described myself as like, I have this radical self-preserving optimism that it's going to be better, because it's the only camp I feel like I can be in without, I don't know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm out of the house for 40 plus hours a week, and with the added stress of, like, I work in a psychiatric crisis unit, so I'm coming into contact with people from the hospital all the time, from homeless shelters all the time, from anywhere. So there's a constant risk of, am I bringing this home to my family, every single day? And do what we can, but that's only so much.
And then figuring out, like, do we continue to keep Leo home from daycare to, like, lessen our exposure, or do we send him to daycare so that we can actually focus on my work and Fiona going to school? And how do you even make that decision? So that's kind of, I think, the moving piece right now.
And like the whole socialization with a 3-year-old, where it's like he probably values seeing other people his age.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. How about you, Emily? How are the Lloyds doing?
We're okay. We're hanging in there. We on last Monday, Verona School District came out with their fall plan, which involves an option to either send pre-K through second grade students to school for 4 half days a week, and then supplementing with asynchronous virtual on the other day, and then keeping 3rd through seniors through 3 through 12 grades starting virtual, with an option to eventually phase in as that becomes, more of an option. But they sent out a survey on Friday and basically said you have to make this decision for the entire first semester now. You have until next Friday to make a decision. So we have to decide if we want, and with Audrey, she's either virtual until January or she starts in school right now. And with Owen, we can pick this option that I kind of like, where it's like, it's a wait and see option. We say that we're starting virtual with him, but then if it makes sense to phase him back in, we can. But then if we have Audrey and we decide, it's with her, it's all or nothing. We either have to send her back now or we have to keep her home. And so if it looks safe and then Owen gets to start going to school, how do we then tell Audrey that, well, you have to stay home till January? So we're kind of thinking we just have to keep him home. We both work full time. We both work from home. We're extremely fortunate in that we're somewhat flexible, but like you guys, fall didn't go particularly well, or
last
spring
spring
didn't go particularly well. And so Audrey, I feel like, is at this critical age where she doesn't quite have the skills yet to be autonomously learning. And so she needs somebody there. I also don't know what synchronous learning would look like with a 6-year-old, a bunch of 6-year-olds in a class together. Owen, I mean, he can read, he can follow directions. He definitely needs help sometimes, but he's so much more self-sufficient. But then it gets to be the thing where he's alone all the time doing all his stuff and he gets totally neglected because Audrey's still learning to read. And so she can't, necessarily do the stuff that he can do. And so there's this, it's hard to give them equal attention and know what to do. And then the loss of sports has been the single thing I think that's had the biggest impact on Owen, because he benefits so much from team sports. So even just social, emotionally, we've seen him just do some super weird things that I don't know if it's just on par for his development as he's, approaching adolescence, he's having this new stuff go on, or if it's a symptom of losing coping mechanisms that he had practiced before, being exposed to his peers. But I mean, he can sometimes barely play a game of horse in the pool. And if he doesn't make a basket, it's like, it's a complete emotional breakdown. Whereas before it was like, he just, would more, you could either tell by his mood, but now it's like the moods are way more, across the board. So I worry about, trying to, if we keep him home longer, what will that do to him? But we were talking this morning, Eric and I were, and it's like, how much risk do you really want to take? If we put them back in school the first time there's a positive case, and it's like, there's probably going to be one, that's what we've been seeing everywhere else. It's just, it's hard to, I understand the school district is under immense pressure to get this right. But leaving the decision up to the parents without a crystal ball and without, sort of figuring out something that'll work for the whole community is really challenging. So I think, and they're like making parents choose. So there's power in that, but there's also a lot of confusion and not knowing what to do in that, because you have to make a decision now when you don't have all the information. And so that's kind of frustrating and a little scary.
Yeah. Any responses or piggybacking on what any of you have said in regards to challenges or anything?
The emotional toll, like you said, Fiona's a particularly social human as well, and she just had that space there, and she masks well, and she like rolls with it as well as she can. But there are moments where there's just like these unrational, absolute meltdowns, and like if you ride it out long enough, she like a breakdown. She's like, I miss my friends, I miss my school, this is not right, when is it going to go back, I hate this, like just like drowning in tears the whole time. And it's like, when you do with that, like there's this baseline of societal trauma that that's everything's building on right now.
We fortunately, something that's helped this summer is we kind of joined bubbles with the family down the street who have a daughter that's they're good friends. And so they play together almost every day, which has been life-saving because she needs that so much. And this week there were a few days where they didn't, and she was back to like complete just emotional like wreck over not seeing friends. And so that's been a great outlet, but that child is going to in-person kindergarten so in the fall. So then do we decide like, they can't play together anymore because she's, you know.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's definitely something that we're struggling with a lot.
Yeah.
Very similar. Like we had one family we decided to bubble with, and then it got to the point where we just weren't, and not in a bad way. Like we had a nice constructive conversation, but you know, Pete has a compromised immune system. So we're just a little more careful than they are. And that was a huge hit for the kids. It was like, we had just told them, you know, that Christmas is canceled, you know,
For a long time.
we're still recovering from, you know, like, why can't we see them? These were our only friends that we were allowed to see. So it's just, and then kind of, like Emily was saying, just the outbursts, emotional outbursts that we're seeing are just next level, you know?
I worry a lot about the other kids out there. Like, I feel like our kids have a pretty good support structure, but there's a lot of kids, like even in the spring, I think the class sizes that showed up were maybe half of the class was in attendance. What are those kids doing in the fall that don't have as good of a support structure? What's the long-term impact? The achievement gap is going to widen. All the stuff down the road. I just worry about the long-term impacts of everything. Like, I feel like we'll be able to shuttle our kids through this pretty safely. It'll be hard, but it's just that years down the road, what the impact that's going to have on everybody.
Yeah. Well, maybe piggybacking on that then, Bethany, do you guys want to talk a little bit about what your parent equity group, just because you are, you know, everyone's concerned about this?
Something that came out of Fiona's kindergarten class at the end of the year was, you know, with all the BLM movement and everything, was the desire to have parent from a place of equity and like of awareness outside of our own privilege, and you know, how can we have that together. And so it's a group of, there's maybe 6 parents that we meet together every Saturday and talk about like resources and how things are going and how we're talking about race with our kids and kind of incorporating that. And we've kind of shifted a little bit in the last couple of weeks to the transition into school, and like with being all virtual, and then the equity gap like widening with that, and how can we help, you know, our community to you know, how can we, and it's not all white families, like there are parents of color in this group too, so it's kind of nice that it's really mixed, but it's we're trying to get the district to include questions about equity and like, what do you need, and you know, making sure that is part of their avenue in the way that they're surveying families for the fall, so that we can hopefully prevent that gap from widening even more.
Okay, so you're in touch with the district, and
that's where we're headed this week, is kind of toward that direction.
Okay.
Because we kind of started to put together a survey for families, and then found out there's other surveys going on, and so we're like, well, what's in those surveys? Are you asking these questions? Like, are these things that you're finding out from families what they need? And yeah,
right.
So
good. All right, that'll be good to see how that progresses, you know, and what to do about that. Yeah, I did see there's like something circulating about parents, make sure to enroll your students, that whole push, because if you don't, that'll have negative, oh, it's just a no-win, right? Do you feel that way? You know, like you said, so far, does anyone know what the online teaching will require of your kids? Like, will it be at a certain time of the day? Does anybody know? Or would there be more flexibility? If you could watch the lesson at any time that it worked for you?
there hasn't been a lot of communication from the district about it yet.
Yeah.
I know kind of some other information from people. You know, the rumor mill, I suppose I should say, is that there is going to be a lot more synchronous stuff.
What does that mean?
That means like your kid is sitting at their computer at 9:00 for a morning meeting, and then they have reading at 10, and they have, you know, like
all the kids together, like everybody's there at the same time doing the same thing.
It's live on Zoom. You know,
got it.
Yeah.
So that's not flexible.
Right.
Picking it up.
Verona's doing the same thing. For grades 3 through 6, they're doing 3 synchronous hours of instruction 4 days a week, and the 7 through 12 are doing 4 synchronous hours 4 days a week.
Oh.
And then there's going to be one designated day where it's all asynchronous and meant as more of a catch-up day, or so they did announce that plan, but they didn't announce it for the pre-K through 2, because that all we know is that you can either send them or they can do virtual, but we don't know what virtual with them looks like yet.
Wow. So is that a hard expectation to place on families? With parents working?
I think so. I mean, we're incredibly fortunate that we can make our schedules work. I don't know what people do who work outside, both parents work outside of the home. I don't know what people do whose kid this isn't going to work for, because there's definitely a lot of those in the district. And I think that the district is trying to figure out, they're calling it a virtual plus model, where if kids have an IEP or they socially, emotionally need to be in person, there's an option for that at some of the older grades, but they haven't said anything else about that other than that they're trying to do something about it. But I just think that those kids, not only are they losing out on the school, but I think it makes things worse for them. And I can't even fathom the stress for the parents. And those are the kids that I worry about. Just, having gone on, being involved in their school, and just, seeing the atmosphere. And I think like half the kids will do fine and half the kids won't. And that's such a scary ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really turns it, like, that's what I'm trying not to like spiral, totally spiral out. But I keep thinking about, okay, well, this year I can make it through the fall totally fine. And even a whole year committing to, either the virtual homeschool hybrid or whatever we decide to do, we'll muddle through. But then thinking about how does this affect them next year, and like the mess that the school is going to have to clean up, not just this year, but the year after, bringing back kids that potentially haven't learned anything in a year and a half at such critical ages,
Yeah. Oh, it's just so heavy. Yeah.
I wish Jen Walker was here, because she had a really great book recommendation, which I'll send to both you girls. It's like a homeschooling. It's basically how to homeschool your kids, different curriculums and stuff, but you could definitely draw on it as a resource book for how to supplement with virtual learning. And it has a bunch of just different math curriculum, specific areas, which is something that I'm going to have to become well versed on, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So is there, as you think about the fall and what the church could help provide, we have a big building that's not being used. We have a building policy that keeps people safe, even as you're like Alyssa, you could bring your kids over and spread out in a Sunday school room and do math there rather than everything at home. So that's like one, we just have this large building that's not being used, and we have a policy that keeps people, I think, as safe as possible. And so I didn't know, and I know Julie Mazer is very excited to keep doing some creative work with families. We should mention that, because somebody was a little bit alarmed that she was doing music with the kids. I go, it's not singing. And I'm so glad we invested in all of these instruments, right? Because it's so, keeping in that mind, she could run a couple of music camps throughout the week, maybe not just one, but enough so that all the kids could participate. But I didn't know if you thought of other ways that the church could be a resource to you, which I know is a big question. Maybe.
Perhaps I missed it, but you referenced a building policy that keeps everything safe, but I don't know what that policy is.
Yeah, it's on I think we have it on the website. So, and we've, through square footage, have determined how many people can be in each room. Just signing in when you come. It's pretty explicit, and the leadership team and others have worked on it and have signed off on it. So, it should be on the website, although the website's being revamped.
I'll check it.
maybe the Facebook page, I can also send it to you. So,
Okay.
yeah. And I realize it may not work anyway, but we have like, if you have to like get your kids moving and later when it's a rainy day, you could run around in Friendship Hall, and because there's nothing in there.
Just
And
come and
Bethany
play
has
in the
used
nursery on
the
rainy days.
nursery once in a while, so just thinking of space, and I bring our dog over there. It's an indoor dog park when it's rainy outside. Anyway, I'd be happy to send you the building policy use so you can see it and feel safe. But yeah, any other, do you feel pretty disconnected from church families?
Yeah.
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 Hard to watch virtual church and see people, and like the coffee hour, I think I would love to go to, but it's like it's just really hard because it seems like those are the times of day where the kids have the hardest time, and so it's like,
They have to be outside, or they will destroy the house so that they are then outside.
that is
So that morning time is hard to just sit down and watch something, right? Or to be participating in something. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be nice in the winter to potentially have the church as a resource too, just because right now we can get the kids outside and doing things,
Totally.
and in the winter too, but it's just you're closed in a lot more in the winter, and I think that's going to be a difficult time to navigate if we're still, hopefully things are better by then, but
yeah, I know. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have a lot of space, and again, it's not being used hardly at all, so just to keeping that in mind. I think sometimes the temptation is, as you just get more insular, you just stay insular. So maybe just scheduling, well, no, and we can put it on the calendar. No, this is the day and time we're going to church, no matter if it's harder to get there. You know what I mean? But to get out of the house, I think would be great for a different headspace. And just set up your stuff there, and we can even leave it open, probably in a room that you choose, and that could be your math center or whatever. We just have all this space. So, so anyway,
we would definitely use that
for sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, is that something that would be open to the broader community? Like, is that something that we can talk to school districts about, like spaces at church, if or is that?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I think I have to talk to Youth Faith Formation about that, and this is just a new idea we're piling on to you guys, so it would be good to use the facility as best we can with it and serve as many people as we can. Maybe we practice with a small group like you, and I'm not saying that you'd maybe necessarily be together, but you know what I mean? Like, we practice using the building, I think is a great phrase, and how we can do that in an organized way can then help us see what else we can do. So, but what are you learning about yourself, or any moment of encouragement from Mother Nature or family or spiritual or friend? Shifting gears here.
I mean, I think it helps that we're just all in this together. And I think that's something that we just keep reiterating with the kids too. And that's been sort of, I mean, I wouldn't say a solve for their problems, but it's definitely like, okay, it's not just, it's not just us, we're part of something a lot bigger that's affecting the whole world. So just trying to keep that in mind, and then just trying to be thankful for what we do have and for each other. It's been neat to see, even though we do say, yeah, the kids have been kind of bonkers. They have their moments, but the flip side's true too. Like, there's so many moments of tenderness between them, and just their bond has increased a lot, which is really cool to see. For example, Kohler and Cameron, they used to hold hands all the time, and that they stopped really last year, and now I catch them all the time just holding hands again. So I'm certain that would not be the case if not for this. So it's really, and then it's forced us all to slow down, which I've talked a little bit with Tammy about, and also Jen quite a bit. We were really guilty of being super, super overscheduled. I mean, we just were, especially in the winter. with 2 boys in hockey season, you know, it's just like, we're just constantly running, and you really realize how little quality time you're spending as a family now looking back. So that's something that I'll definitely carry with me, and I know Pete too, where it's like, okay, the kids do enjoy not being so scheduled. They could use a little more physical activity, but
Okay.
you know.
Yeah. Anybody else have?
I think similarly, like the time thing has been there have been some amazing positives to all of this. You know, it's I have more time, despite being like the point person who is home all the time with the kids. Like, I'm going for a walk by myself in the morning every day. I never did that before. Like, I would have had to get up at 4:30 to do that. And now I can get up at 6, which feels more reasonable, and get that in before the day starts, which is really nice. And so that's been really good for me. My time alone has gone to being in nature and walking around and hearing the birds instead of driving in the car by myself. And it's also been amazing to watch my kids during this time. Like, it's especially the development stage that Leo's been at from mid-March until now. Like, he was right before he turned 2 when we started staying home. And so like that development, to witness that every second of the day has been incredible. And that's something I wouldn't have had. You know, he had a few words then, and now he's like sentences and opinions and ideas and desires, and you know, it's amazing. And Fiona, like, to watch her become more creative and to be so unstructured, and we've definitely left the summer like largely unstructured. Like, let's be outside as much as we can. What do you want to do? You know, what are we going to do? And let her be bored and figure it out. And that's to watch her creativity blossom. And she'll sometimes have these days long imaginary game that she's doing that just like picks up the next day. And it's like, you know, she didn't do that to that extent before.
Yeah.
That's been really cool.
Not to mention that I feel like we've been more social during this time than before. Like every Thursday night, it's night with the Lloyds with puzzles and games. Every Saturday night, we're on Zoom with her family, and now every Sunday night, those neighbors that we kind of join bubbles with, we go have like a drink or two with them and let the kids play after dinner. Yeah. So. I don't know, like, your social involvement, but I've been much more social during the pandemic.
Because people have time to do that stuff,
right?
Doing other things.
That's so true. Yeah. Like, I always feel like, wow, I could ask the youth to do this, and I won't have to pull out my hair trying to find a time in the next month for them to show up for something. Like, so, that's nice.
It was like a giant reset button. And now when we do have things scheduled, as things are slowly starting to come back, like Owen on Tuesdays, he'll be like, it's 9 o'clock. So that's 90 minutes until we have to be at church. And I mean, before, you know, it's like wrestling away from stuff, and carefully transitioning your kids. And now they're like, I get to go be out in the world in 90 minutes. And we have a soccer, soccer is trying to come back safely. And I feel like the Wisconsin Youth Soccer Association has been really good about their decisions and their communication. And so we have a tentatively scheduled, like, they're just bringing, I think they can have 15 kids at a time there. And so they had 4 different times you could sign up for one. But it's like just remembering the basic skills. And so I think, you know, sometimes it's nice to have, like, organizations are really thinking about how to, you know, reacclimate everyone to the world. So we really appreciate that. And I was worried, you know, Owen didn't do Little League this year. Even though they still had Little League, we opted out of it. And, you know, you worry about your kids missing out, but they find a way. And I mean, Owen's skill level now, I mean, he's just been practicing with Eric. He's been practicing with me. He's been practicing with his sister. And he didn't lose anything, you know, at this age. Like, they're children, you know, you worry about skill loss and then still being able to keep up with their peers. And it's like, it's fine. It's all fine. So a lot of those fears that I had, I feel better about as we, you know, kind of start getting back into things. And it's really exciting getting back into things. And I feel like we can reprioritize a little bit. We were trying to do everything before. And now we're trying to strategically pick our favorite things to get them kind of back in. But it's one of the things we struggled with a little bit is it's kind of like the new parent peer pressure right now, where people all feel different ways about things. And so sometimes people you know that you're like acquaintances with, and it's like, oh, we see them at this activity and we see them at this activity, and you don't necessarily personally hang out, but we're like friends through this. And it's like all of a sudden their opinions come out and you're like, whoa. So it changed some relationships unexpectedly, you know, about kind of crazy things. And I think just trying to shut my brain off to that, to be like, if I didn't, you know, before I wouldn't have known this about them or known these opinions, but it's almost like the over social mediaization, because that's how everyone has been communicating in a bunch of our circles now. It's like you see a lot of other stuff that you wouldn't have seen before or known that someone felt that way about. And it's like, I want to go back to before I knew that, because that we were friendly before, it was totally fine. And that's the level to which I want to get along with. You know, it's like being neighborly with someone versus being friends. And I hope we can, you know, as we get reintroduced to everything, I'm kind of hoping that those things smooth over too, because that's been an unexpected thing that, you know, that I've seen throughout this whole thing.
So again, I'd like to thank those parents who shared with us in the Zoom conversation today. And I believe that this is the beginning of many conversations with them as we support them through this time. I'd like to share a prayer on behalf of our parents. So please pray with me. God of comfort and grace, we offer thanks for the gift of these parents who have shared with us their joys and challenges of raising and attending to their children in this time of pandemic. We think of all the parents in our church community and others in our neighborhood and in our city who are facing many pressures and decisions about schooling and work and staying safe as the COVID-19 cases keep rising. God of our lives, we ask for your comfort and guidance, your abiding love and grace as parents navigate through this time. We pray for opportunities to continue to advocate for all children and families, that we may support and seek justice and the well-being of all students, staff, and teachers. Give us strength, endurance, and hope in our calling to love you, to love our neighbor, and to love ourselves. Amen. And for our closing, I've invited Kylie to share with us the singing benediction, Nothing Can Trouble.
Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those who seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those who seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those who seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those who seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those who seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us.